this gender stuff specifically. You're trying to encourage and empower these pastors to talk about the truth.
As a pastor, you are to preach the word and share the truth. Jesus never shied away from discord. That's what we're supposed to be doing. There are certain, we call them inalienable rights and fundamental truths that will never change. So I think that we all need to be standing up for those and defending those. And then certainly I would encourage and hope that the pastors do that as well, because I feel like that's their job.
Here with Nicole Pearson, so just went up on stage, and there's such a weird dynamic between Christianity and American law. And then there's God's law, and it feels like everyone's trying to say like, okay, the church, you can talk about these things, but there's some political stuff over here. Like, how do you find a relationship between those two things?
Well, I would say just right out the gate that now pretty much my rule of thumb, not of law, is that pretty much anything the government says that you cannot or can do, I'm always questioning that. So this is very interesting. Probably one of my next blog posts is going to be about the separation between church and state and how they have couched it, just as they've done many laws that I'm actually litigating right now, and a lot of bills happening in Sacramento where you present it as one thing, as a good thing for the people, but when in reality what you're trying to do is undermine really critical values to weaken communities and then take control of them. So I think that it's actually has been weaponized, this doctrine of separation of church and state, and I think it's really dangerous, and I think we need to revisit that.
Well, it seems like especially the opposition right now too, they say like, well, there's these Christian nationalists over here that just
which is like axiomatic. Like, you can't be a Christian nationalist. I mean, that you wouldn't really truly be a Christian if you were a nationalist. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
And then that's what people like. They try just inflaming all these words. It's like, okay, Nicole's over here. You know what she's trying to do? She has like her own view of the country that she's going to try to just shove down your throat. But at the same time, they don't want you to really understand what they're shoving down your throat. And that's based on their own morals, their own virtue, their own value, their own foundation. And they forget about the foundation of this country in the first place.
Well, I think that that's the plan, right? Anything that's traditional. So I was just out there speaking, and I actually feel, my family is a family of immigrants, and I'm a woman, and I'm sure of that. I'm a woman, and I have.
That was my next question.
I am sure, and I have what would typically traditionally be considered liberal views, social views, but not for myself. I'm very conservative, and so I see kind of like having one foot in each little pot. I see that basically what the attack is on anything traditional, like you just said. And the attack is on Christianity, which is the foundation of this country. And that's exactly what we were just talking about is in my opinion, this is a fascist attack on our government to subvert the government, and with these traditional Christian values, which have very long-standing principles, like very basic things that you would never want to undermine, like do unto others, the golden rule, don't covet your neighbors, all those things that we have. And so, I mean, it's intentional. Anything that is traditional, anything that is conservative, they don't even have to explain it away as long as they give it that label, like you were just saying, and it's automatically discredited. So I think it's that woke narrative, it's that attack on anyone that is like, I'm just gonna keep to myself, or I'm gonna keep these decisions private. You can do whatever you want, not sacrificing themselves and their children and for their communities. And it's just very easy to label and discredit and discard people. And that's part of the strategy.
Do you feel like people don't even understand what love is right now then? Because when someone says, love thy neighbor, you're gonna have someone like VP Harris go up there and say, like, if you really love your neighbor, you'd go and get this vaccine, and then you go get this booster, and then you get another booster, and then you listen to what we have to say because we're the government. We're here to take care of you, right? We took care of you for so long, and you've freely given up your rights, but we're gonna make sure that we take care of everything you've provided us.
Well, you've raised a lot of interesting points in that question. Yes, I think that the definition of love has been very, like you said, manipulated and tainted. I agree with that. I mean, like you said, before coming on camera, is that or a lot of us have said, you control definitions, you control the words, you control the language, and you control the narrative and what people believe and think. And so, like, we were just joking, like, what is a woman?
Yeah.
Like, that word doesn't even have any meaning anymore. But it's so interesting because at the same time, we have the Women's March.
Yeah.
So, and we're fighting for women's rights. But then anybody can get pregnant. And I think it's intentional to keep people confused. And if you dare, I actually don't think they even know what they're talking about themselves. But as long as you're confused and you're not allowed to say anything about it, because anyone that questions it, even like, for example, Dr. Naomi Wolf, she worked on the Obama campaign, the Clinton campaign. She worked for the New York Times. She is a feminist. She is a tried and true, or was, with the formerly known as Democratic Party. She was part of that. And she questioned as one of them, and they completely annihilated her. They just completely destroyed her. So I think the strategy is confuse the definition and silence anybody who dares to question. And if they question, then completely annihilate them and just erase them from society. And that's the war tactic.
Final question then, here we're at the Pastor Summit. So you're trying to encourage and empower these pastors to talk about the truth, to stand up and be courageous. And a lot of them have been.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that might have just a little differing in theology or the way that they structure the church or things like that. But right now it's just saying this gender stuff specifically, if we're going off on that still, why aren't you talking about that at church? Why aren't you equipping people with the truth? Because it really seems like if they're not talking about it, they're going to hear about it in schools, they're going to hear about it in their workplace, they're going to hear about it through media, and then that's going to be their new shepherd, basically.
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is taking them out of the hot seat, pastors out of the hot seat, is that all of this begins in the home. And that begins with having, in my opinion, 2 parents in the home, and having that nuclear family where you discuss, you control the narrative, you control the information, and not in a controlling, like, abusive way, but you are the ones who are shepherding your own children. I think that's where it needs to start. And even if you don't have children, you are building that kind of dialogue and discourse and investigation with your partner. I think that's number one. We can't blame it all or rely on the pastors. But then I would say that as a pastor, you are to preach the word and share the truth. And I mean, Jesus never shied away from discord. He never, he went into the throes of it, and he challenged people and he fought with people. I know people don't want to admit that and have that image of him, but that's what we're supposed to be doing. And you have to stand up for right and wrong, and you have to say that's not right, because right is right and wrong is wrong. There are certain, we call them inalienable rights and fundamental truths that will never change, no matter who's president, no matter what kind of government we have, no matter where you live. And so I think that we all need to be standing up for those and defending those. And then certainly I would encourage and hope that the pastors do that as well, because I feel like that's their job.
Well, thank you for all you do.
Absolutely.
Where can people follow you?
Facts, Law, Truth, Justice. It's a long name. I didn't really think it out, but I couldn't decide because the facts were so important. Law is obviously important, and it's something I care about. Truth as well. And if you have the facts and the law, you'll find the truth and ultimately achieve justice. So factslawtruthjustice.com, and then Facts, Law, Truth, Justice on Instagram. But I'm not that easy to find on Instagram. You got to type the whole thing out and then click that you want to follow a domestic terrorist, and then we'll be friends. And then hopefully they won't take my post down. But
thanks a lot, Big Tech.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, censorship. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.